Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our, frantic last 30 seconds before we go live, just like every show. Um, it is February 28th. It's the last day of February. Thank fucking God. March is here. March means spring. Everyone, especially those of you guys in Europe right now, and in Ireland and England, spring's there. Come on, it's going to be March tomorrow. Spring's coming. Spring's coming. Yeah. Hi, Ben. How's it going?
Kia ora. Yeah, it's nice and warm. It's funny you sitting there saying it's the 28th of February because it's not. It's the 1st of March.
No. It's the 1st of March for you are. It's the 28th of February for some of us. Most of us.
and yeah, on its way into autumn. Although our autumn is very probably much like the Northern Hemisphere's spring.
Yeah, your autumn is like, seriously, it's summer for most people in Europe.
Yep.
So we've been joking about, because Ben and I have been trying to play catch up for, I don't know, like weeks now. And we haven't really had a chance to catch up on anything. We haven't actually decided even on a topic of what we're going to discuss tonight. So this is winging it, as we do. So, oh God, I mean, where do you even want to start?
This is the crux of the matter.
When you have so much to talk about, and that's what Ben and I both just said, we kind of got together about 45 minutes ago just for a quick chat, and it's like there's so much going on that narrowing it down to like where you even start from.
In the abyss that is.
In the abyss it is. Energetically right now, shit is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Shit is completely fucking insane, and I'm watching the most calm people I know, the most together people I know are losing their shit. And I don't mean like losing the shit as in like going crying or emotionally losing the shit. I mean literally like just sitting there just being like, I think I gotta go back to bed. Yeah, I think I'll just go back to bed.
Word.
Yeah.
It's been very interesting. Very, very interesting.
But it's been, I mean, you and I use that. Oh, we use that all. Talk about overuse of a word. Everyone teases me on that because everything is interesting to me, and I can't help it. But it just gets more interesting. So, like, I mean, the last few weeks. I mean, this entire year so far. So we've had 2 months of 2018. And this 2 months feels like it's already been 6 months long. Like at least 6 months long. Like Christmas feels like it had to have been, I don't know, fucking
6 months ago.
6 months ago at least. And there's been so much happened on multiple levels. Like we're talking about like, okay, you got the false flags, you've got all the fucking political shit, and we've got all the financial shit, and we've got all the really, really fucked up strange weather and disclosure stuff coming out left, right, and center. It's like every day it feels like there's another piece of subtle disclosure on multiple topics being thrown at us. I can't keep up. Like I honestly, like I mean, I try to report the news and all that kind of shit. I can't keep up with the shit that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. We've been watching, our little HAARP bleeps smashing us and watching the weather down here. Like we weren't supposed to have rain for like the last 2 or 3 days, and we've had a couple 100 mils. And then prior to that, there was supposed to be rain, and it was only this. And then we weren't going to get any, and then we had 60 mils in 2 hours. It's been pretty cool. But like I say, as well, like bearing in mind all the other things that are going on, things like solar minimums and ionosphere depletions and the earthquakes and I literally was sitting here with the crew there. It was last Sunday, and I went back 7 days, and I counted 24 earthquakes just along the top of the Ring of Fire, and none were below 5.2. I think was smallest.
Yep.
So there's, and like a lot of these occurrences have a lot of variances. Like, you know, when you go back to what Dutch Sins was putting out, BP Earthwatch, when he was doing the earthquakes and the solar stuff, and
Yep.
and a lot of the confirmations that we've got now of all this stuff, you know, interacting, which we've all known for, you know, longer than we've been told. But, you know, they're now even sort of putting out with, I think it's Machu Kiko, the you know, the physicist, the guy that went on CNN or whatever it was saying, yeah, we're shooting 4 trillion watt laser beams into the ionosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
what?
Well, I just watched another thing on is it the Sina fault line? It's not the one that everyone thinks about normally, not the San Andreas, and not the San blah blah blah. It's on the east coast somewhere, but apparently it goes off every 240 years, and we're sitting at a 320 year.
You know, I talked about the New Madrid.
I'd have to go back to look at the thing. I don't. Oh, was it New? No, I don't think it was the New Madrid. But anyway, they were like, you know, literally to the point where the interviewer was like, so would you buy down in the blah 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 area? And he's like, no. But if I did, I would make sure that you know, earthquake and fire knowledge was in my children. And it's just like, you know, this is stuff that we've been talking about. Here you go. This is possibly a starting point. This is stuff that we've been talking about. You know, being prepared for the potentiality of these things, not because of being scared about them, but more so because, you know, you sit there and you've got these scientists now that are coming out and validating what these original peoples around the world have been saying for fucking ages. So is it actually time that we really need to start taking heed to that letter, that potential letter that was sent by the Inuit, what was it, 5 years ago now?
2009.
5 years ago? Yeah.
The first one was 2009.
Yeah, so, you know, that whole shift thing, I mean, if you start putting all these pieces together with, like Clif bringing Antarctica to the forefront again, and not even so much in the disclosure and the technology side of it, like, look at what he's saying is happening. This part's melting, and this part's growing, and we can literally sit there and
these massive magnetics that are coming off of it.
Well, okay, so just on that, I just watched a very recent talk on the Bosnian Pyramids, right?
Oh, so did I.
Yeah, did you see what they were saying about what was coming out of the top of it? They've been doing these, So like what you actually are starting to have is a correlation. What did Cliff say that they found coming out of Antarctica? Right, and it was getting stronger as it went up, which is what they've found in the Bosnian Pyramid.
Yeah.
So you're starting to get, you know, and people might say, oh, what about the Bosnian Pyramid? But this thing has actually been validated now at, I think, at least 3 international conferences that have had over hundreds and hundreds of archaeologists, scientists, physicists, electro engineers, all going, holy shit. And then as soon as it gets back to the States and whatnot, they kind of get, I guess, their tenures get threatened or whatnot.
Well, and this, so I interviewed Dr. Sam Osmanigich May 2015, when I did the Untangled Gathering, the Origins Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because it was, of all the videos at the end of it, because that conference was almost 18 hours. Oh, not 18, sorry. It was over 14 hours long, and I was hosting the whole thing. So you're running in and out and in and out, in and out. But the one that I made sure I sat down to watch the entire piece of, again, afterwards, was the part with Dr. Osmanigich, because it's archaeology has always been one of my things that's really, really always gets my attention. But the Bosnian Pyramids has been just so astounding. So I've said I'm actually going to reach out to Sam again and ask him if I can do another interview, because I want to get the updates. I want to find out what he's actually doing now, what some of this new stuff is, because from what I caught in that latest video, they got new shit that they're seeing, and some of the new stuff that they're finding is like, you're muted.
So did you manage to see, and I think I posted it on my wall, which I don't know how far it goes, but there was a guy who was watching the NASA footage from the space station going, look at this, it's a hologram. And he, you know, if you got through the video, which was, I think it was about 20 minutes long, it was quite like, what's going on? But what I noticed right towards the end, or yeah, towards the end-ish part, 2/3 of the way through, I saw these circles of, well, all I can describe is these clear circles that were just sitting right on the halo of the Earth. And I posted it to Randy and you guys. Yeah, I was like, I think we just found pictures of Clif's water globules. You know, so like we've got this potential, whether you want to call it programmed. For me, it's kind of like I started adding all these bits and pieces together. So if you put the bleep theory together, the 21 trillion, and instead of like, because Clif for me keeps going like this, so it overlaps. But I started thinking nature doesn't necessarily work in straight lines. Even in the beginning, right, you're going to have an arc, right, which is a piece of a curvature of a circle is an arc.
Right. Yep.
You can take out that 1 degree, and that's actually an arc.
Yep.
So, and we've got our DNA, and it works in a double helix. So what if the pulse works like that in a double helix fashion, right? But it works inwards as well as outwards. So all you're doing is getting complexity that's building. So it would end up kind of looking like a pipe or a solid rod, but it's not actually a solid rod, of course.
No.
It's the stuff. So
okay, but that's interesting too, because the concept of when you're saying like the double helix, and I like that concept, because we've talked about for ages about the inhale and the exhale. And is that what, when we talk about the inhale and the exhale, the bleep is basically like an inhale exhale?
Well, it's a pulse and a pause. Remember. So like the tide goes out. It takes 6 hours to go out, and it sits for half an hour, and then it takes 6 hours to come in, and then it sits for half an hour. So you've got it's a pause. So it's not necessarily a delete. It's a pause. And so that's what creates. See.
And if you guys are lost, you're gonna have to go back and watch the interview I did with Clif High back in January, called "The Deep Woo," and he talks about, and he did an exceptionally good series of interviews with Randy Moggins and Emily Moya and Off Planet TV, all about time. It's a 3 parts, and I think the 3rd part just came out, didn't it?
Another 2 parts, basically. So, I think like kind of 4 parts all up.
So those have just come out. You really should watch them, because
we'll go into bits and pieces, I think, because I think what this discussion might be is the kind of maybe a what do you call it, a recap of the deep immersions.
Recap. Yeah.
Bringing it somehow back into the common unity, which is kind of what it all is anyway.
And, Brianna just said it, and that's what I was getting. Yeah. Brianna?
No, there's bleeps and pauses. That's
what I'm saying, but I think that it could be inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. That's the...
Okay. Oh, so yeah. So
because if you're talking about, because he talks about it as time, and time is time. What is time? okay, I'm not going
to don't go there
time.
yet.
Yeah. But time and space, right? If we look at time and space as is being interconnected in this conversation, the inhale, exhale, and the pause gives the place to create 3D. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not just a line, a singular in like this. There's an expansion and contraction.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that in doing some of the other work that we were doing that I was talking to you about earlier, which we'll probably go into because it's involving the Levity Collective side of things.
Yeah.
We sat down and we were going through numbers, okay, as you do. Now, when you work with the Trinity, okay, and it's been bastardized into this dualistic feminine masculine, whereas from what my research shows is it's actually a holy Trinity, which is matter, fata, and child, right? Mother, father, child. That was the Trinity. That's the creation. It's not masculine or feminine. It's, and then creation happened. Right. So what were we just saying? The pause, the bleep, the exhale. Right. Yes. So dealing with the Trinity. Okay. Now, if you divide 1 by 3, you get that. You know, 0.3333. Now, if you go 0.33333 times 3, what do you get?
You don't get 1.
No, you get 0.9999. So every time a Trinity occurs, so this is what we were working at, you end up with 0.0000000000000 whatever it is, 1. And you end up with that with every Trinity that happens. So what we started postulating was that 0.00001 was the free energy. That is the pause, right? So, because you've got to breathe in and hold, right? Process and then exhale. And that's spirit. That is spirit. We know that spirit is breath. Spirituality is the art of breathing. So that brings you into the now because you have to have that pause to process the now, because it hasn't happened. You've got to create it on your breath out.
Yeah.
So then we have, if it works in trinities, even if you go 10 divided by 3, you end up with 3.3333, but you end up back at 9.9999999. So in all of those trinity, or any kind of trinity calculation, you end up with some variable that is out there.
Yep.
And what I was postulating is when the what was being spoken about with when Clif started talking about the water globules and this sort of thing, are we now possibly, and just the postulation here is that the bleep, you know, is that hydrogen reaching its capacity and forming into that plasma, which then that plasma is coming down and creating ozone. Ozone ends up being one type of firmament, and then we end up with our water firmament. And that thing that I sent you today, this morning,
didn't get a chance to watch.
Yeah, which is okay. But what he talks about is this water firmament being there, and the water, what it does is it filters out ultraviolet, which is your purple and blue light frequencies. Okay, those are the harmful ones. Remember?
Yep.
These are the ones that Clif was talking about, that at some point there may have been a stage where hieroglyphs and petroglyphs have been showing, like, you know, hominids in caves holding sticks out and them catching on fire.
Yeah. That
would be your ultraviolet to blue light, or blue to ultraviolet lights. It would be able to do that. So what he was talking about is once again is time, pressure, and then essentially the way certain compounds. So he starts talking about we're now in our brain, in our brain hemisphere, we're only dealing with about 21% oxygen, whereas X amount of time ago we had 25% of oxygen in our brains, which actually oxygenated the brain enough to function at a higher frequency. And he was postulating that, so
okay, but I see that goes against something that I've been working on in my own head, and the fact that I'm looking at it in the reverse. It was hydrogen.
but it doesn't. It
Hydrogen is
doesn't work. Well, this is what he goes into though. He goes through quite a few of them. He says that oxygen was a bit higher in certain points, which did this, but then it actually created this thing where CO2 increased, which then increases this. He actually goes into a bit of it, and they've proven this in like hyperbaric chambers. And he went into a girl that got stuck in a well or whatever, and her foot was all mangled. And most Americans, I think, no, and she got put into a hyperbaric, and they thought they were going to have to amputate the leg and then the foot, and then it all came back to life in this oxygenated area. So what I was getting at is I'm wondering if we're starting to see our universe's functions, e.g. that pulse reaching its mass and then creating these, like I say, plasma globules that are then coming down and creating an ozone, which then will help trap water vapor, which will then hopefully build up, which then recreates that water firmament, which then changes the light frequency. You know what I mean? And it's like we're actually seeing this actual cycle play out. Because I felt like there's just a few things that have become quite strange. Like I heard a government agency, and I can't remember for the life of me. Oh no, who was it? Oh, it was NASA yesterday on a fucking on a radio show. They've just built this gigantic telescope that's going to go 1 million miles out or whatever, right? But it's going to look away from the Earth, and its sails are going to be so big that they're going to black out any light, so they're going to be able to photograph in infrared. And what he was saying is because when things move away from you, they go red. And I'm like, what did you say? Because my understanding, especially with the blue Kachina, red Kachina story, is that red is coming towards you because it's heat, and blue is going away because it's cooling. Like if something's coming towards you, it shows as a red.
Yep.
And if it goes away.
See, but the problem with that is it goes on. Then we have to deal with the premises that we're stuck dealing with this mainstream science of what outer space is, and what the temperature is, and what's actually out there, and what's the atmosphere of outer space. Is it, and because I have some real issues when we start dealing with this, because there's every single piece of question comes up when they say things like everything is red because it's moving away from you.
John. Okay, so look at John's just said traveling away stretches the wave thereby. So moving away is red.
Okay, so so what John said was the Doppler effect. Traveling away stretches the wave, thereby lowering the perceived frequency, shifting it to the red. Okay, so then it's an infrared, right? Okay, so that works. That still works. Because what they're postulating is that they're going to be able to see galaxies as they were formed, or blah 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 blah. But in what they're also saying is kind of like, what, you're watching what happened that has happened, but it's already gone. So they're then proposing that by watching space is recording effects in light, and what they're watching is the infrared. Yeah, but again, they're just interpreting it by what we know in our own science, based on a planet. Sure. It has got this atmosphere and this sense, all these things and this physics. And as I keep saying, and I've argued for years, what we experience here does not mean that that's what is experienced somewhere else.
But by no means. But at the same time as this stuff's coming out, you have, like I say, there's that guy talking about Turtle Island. Yeah. And there's this, and I should probably post the link in this chat so that everyone can see. This one here. Because this guy's proposing that the atmosphere was different, and therefore everything was different. and it's having to get into those kind of mind frames as well. It's like what we were saying with Randy and everyone in the deep immersions and whatnot. It's like if we want to live in a Tesla universe, you know, Eric Dollard, Steinmetz, those kinds of guys, it's like that's the stuff that we've got to start bringing forward.
Yeah.
And looking at the things that are playing out in the natural or the more natural world.
Natural. Go ahead, Ben.
Well,
how dare you?
yeah. Well, that's well. Look, and all I've got is my soil, my dirt, my chickens, and that kind of stuff. You know, so in that aspect, you see stuff, but like I say, is when you start seeing and people talking about, you know, there's these globules, they look like this. They don't say blood cells, but I guarantee if you put a blood cell and one of these things together, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, instead of going, who's programming them, we go, well, this is this natural sequence, right, that's starting to happen. It's like the way that they use the fucking sugarcane mills and stuff like that to pump out steam when they're trying to cloud seed.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, right? It's, we were talking about, I've been talking about recently the fact that like Eric Dollard was talking about how the frequency of electricity has been changed. And it would seem in the last decade to decade and a half that's happened. So not long time. And then putting that into the context of Dollard and Tesla and being like, right, okay, so when homes that are made of brick melt and vaporize and fires and nature doesn't get touched, we know what Tesla was fucking with at certain points, right? So like you see HAARP, and we know what HAARP is, and we're all like fucking HAARP. But our electrical grids, and now with these 5G monopoles going up,
fucking everywhere.
What did Tesla want to do? Mm-hmm. Remember what he wanted to do? And I'm not saying that these are exactly, and it would send out a frequency.
But it would send out a frequency
to be picked up by antennae.
The difference is that Tesla was dealing with the Earth frequencies, the natural, not these artificial frequencies. But that brings me back to the question that I was trying to get around to with Clif when I talked about the 21 trillion, right? Mm-hmm. By sinking these fucking rods into the ground and throwing all these frequencies through them for this 5G, and not just HAARP, 5G, Wi-Fi tower, like you fucking name it, everywhere. Are they then using those, I'm sorry, but those grounding rods, if you will, to try and alter the frequency of the planet? I.e., if they can't...
No. Like, okay. I'll interject there.
Tesla was
no. You got to take it the whole step further.
Okay.
They have changed our electrical grid frequencies.
Okay.
Electricity is the dielectric, or its dielectric is magnetism. They have changed.
And our magnetism is fucked.
They have changed. Like that. See, this is what I mean. Is like it's the same with the chemtrails. We know they're chemtrailing. We know it. They've even said it. We know that they cloud seed. We know that they geoengineer. We know that. Yeah. And we know that they're sending, we know that HAARP is an electrical component that basically solidifies itself and shoots what? Electrons, highly charged electrons into the ionosphere. So they are doing it.
Okay, so here's my question though. I'm going to play the chicken and the egg game. Mm-hmm. We know what they're doing. So we know all these people, what they're doing. We know that the geomagnetics are completely fucked. I mean, they're all over the place. Like we got the North Pole moving something ridiculous like 100 miles a year at this point. It's going so fucking fast. We've seen these geomagnetic hotspots appearing all over the planet. And we know because the geomagnetics and therefore the electrical, they're tied together. What happens to one happens to the other. Are we looking at the geomagnetic, whatever's happening magnetically on the planet is shifting the electricity on the planet?
No.
The other way around.
No, because because what my understanding is electricity is period. Electricity as an energy, right? It starts off as energy, it disposes here as electricity, and then you have magnetism and electricity, and they
but that
which is kind of that levity gravity kind of
absolutely. But that frequency of electricity, energy is there. It right.
So, and that's what I'm saying. So it's the way it's programmed. Yeah. So the way it's programmed. So this is like AC versus DC. This is digital versus analog. That is that process, right? And then what and this is like from working with carbon. What we're starting to postulate is carbon holds different carbon formats, or different carbon compounds hold different energy signals.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then different carbon compounds transmute those things. So it's like you can, like we were making little circuits to run LED lights off of our little capacitors. Okay, and we were creating what's a joule thief, right? So our capacitor could only hold 1.5 volts, but we needed 2.2 to run the LED. So you run this toroidal thing around like a little ferrite sort of thing, and you put it in, and it actually builds the charge up a bit more to dispose.
Nick has played with this stuff for a shit ton.
Yeah. So when I say electricity, it's electricity here, as in that kind of charge, right? Not electricity as in I'm going to stick my plug into a fork.
Yeah.
That is a certain type of tuning, right? So they create the circuitry for electricity to come out that way. Now, because they use, I can't even remember now, my brain's so fried on this stuff, like because let's say they use AC, we lose, it dissipates, and that's why they have what do they call them?
Like repeater.
Transformer. Transformer, which then builds it back up to then send the signal back out. Whereas the way Tesla was doing it, and not even via the just passing it via the antenna, when he was talking about actual electrical stuff, the way he was doing is it didn't dissipate. It was a constant.
It was a continuous constant. Because it was natural. Instead
of the blip, 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 which, like, the way our electricity works is kind of like that. It goes pew, pew, pew.
Yep.
So it has to constantly be created. It's always has to be like, and that's what I mean is like, they have done that. That these things have been done and are being done. So it's then... What I find very interesting is the stuff that's also coming out now about how or possible remedies, let's call them. So things like C60, the way the cannabis and that sort of stuff is all coming out now. All these different bits and pieces, radiation, desalination through carbons.
And the radiation is one of the things I want to talk about. Because, and I may throw you on the spot on this one, so just be prepared. Radiation, because I mean, we've gone through this quest for years now I mean, Lisa and I on the One People show, we talked about radiation on off. Is it real? Isn't it real? You got guys who are like, oh, let's go swim in this nuclear water, cooling water because it's totally nothing, and everything you've heard about nuclear weapons is all bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But in the conversations with Clif High, and not just the one that Clif and I had, but also in some of the other discussions he's had as well, he's talked about radiation. Now he's talked about the fact of him and I think it's Bix Weir, they're Geiger counters, and they've both got Geiger counters. They go and they take measurements and everything.
Yeah.
And the relative norm or accepted. Sorry, the relative acceptable norms have gone from like 5 rads to 25 rads. Now these are guys who are using. This isn't hearsay, some talking head on CNN warning about nuclear war. These are guys with, and there's hundreds of thousands of people with Geiger counters going around saying, we got a serious fucking problem with radiation. So,
but see, when you
hold on, let me finish.
Yeah.
I'm going to a place with this. Back in November, when everyone in my family anyway started getting sick, and we're all sick again. I'm fucking loving these chemtrails. Ann and I, Ann Callahan and I were going through all of the how it was coming out, what it was coming out, what were we looking at, and the one thing that kept coming up was a lot of the symptoms were the symptoms of radiation. And we talked, and her and I talked about it. And then, of course, recently again, something else came up again about radiation. And was talking to someone who is well into the research of the C60, who you know, and who has said that the reason why they're putting out C60 right now and allowing it to get flooded out through the alternative media for everyone to use is because they're basically running human trials. They can't officially do human trials, but if they can get everyone to voluntarily buy it and use it on themselves, i.e. if you're purchasing it, you're volunteering, and then they're collecting all the data from it. And the reason why is radiation. They're going back to what Clif High said about the fact of our ozone layers being stripped away, and what you were saying about the ultraviolet light. So the increase in radiation, everyone likes to go, oh, Fukushima, 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 but
no one's going solar minimum, solar minimum.
And we've got, and I don't mean just like holes in the ozone. We're talking about a lessening of the atmosphere.
Ionosphere.
And like this is what Clif High was talking about. And this friend of Ben and I's. The atmosphere, if you want to call it, has gone from here to like we've only got like this much now. So now we're talking about a situation where the film, the sunglasses over the earth, if you will,
the firmament,
right? So when we talk about radiation, this is a really big conversation and an important one that we need to start having, and it kind of plays into what I was talking about on Sunday about like people, we got to start taking responsibility for ourselves and stop waiting for someone else to fix our shit for us. We got to fucking just step up and do it for ourselves. This radiation question, there's so many pieces to this right now. And like I said, the distraction, I feel personally, is the fingers trying to point at things like Fukushima or nuclear power plants that are melting down. And that's not me saying that nuclear power plants melting down is a good thing, because God knows in Canada and the US, they're fucking melting down everywhere. That's not, but what if it's bigger? What if we're talking about the fact of it is the fact that we have these holes and that firmament or that filter or that veil, if you will, is thinning.
Yeah, and weaker in certain parts, and therefore, you know, certain things are blown up to try, like, to filter out more,
And does that affect the electrical of the planet as well? I mean, we are talking about the frequencies of these radiation frequencies of ultraviolet. It seems to me logical. This is going to have an effect on
Yeah, oh, for sure.
the magnetics, on the electrical energy of the planet. And then we add HAARP into that. And what the fuck is HAARP doing? Fucking frying the atmosphere with all kinds of fucking shit. So, yeah.
And then it's how to interadapt with it. See, and that's another one. We've been looking at this this crossover between humans and nature, right? That's kind of what I've been doing for some time. And when you start getting into like talks that we've had on nutrition, talks about even right down to the endocannabinoids and that sort of side of things and their different interplays. So now we're starting to get into these carbons and the different potentialities of these carbons and their effects and things like that. And with all these components that we're talking about, they're literally components in soil, right?
Funny,
like
that.
Really,
as back to nature as you get.
Like literally, like you're at the fucking, you know, the cornerstone of everything. You know, your carbons, your metals, even aluminium, like in mineral form, is quite an important part in nature. It's when you start getting a smelted down crap that it changes. But we started postulating, are we way more connected, of course, with the planet than we sort of maybe want to give credence to?
Yeah.
Because we all talk about being one and da 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 da, but we literally started in the phase of talking about, are we going to be able to map our DNA to us actually making specific soil based on certain things? Like, you know, we've worked on soils from recipes from Egypt, from Mesoamerica, from you know, Polynesia and that sort of stuff, and different ways of making soil and the way that they did it. And is the potential of you creating this biome or microclimate for yourself, your family, your community, your village, actually going to strengthen your DNA, strengthen everything else? Like, and I don't just mean on a nutritional level, I mean on an actual balanced, on like literally like a balanced thing where your DNA and your mitochondrial DNA basically are almost one and the same as what you have in your soil.
Yep.
And then that comes back to the sort of topic we've always talked about, which is growing your own food and you know, making your own medicines and bits and pieces like that. Because what it actually is literally a harmony with your environment. You know, like we've talked about, is like perhaps the planet doesn't know we're all here.
Yep.
You know, we once used to sing and all the rest of it everywhere we used to go. Or so the stories say. You know, I feel it was very true. Yeah, drumming, singing, flutes, dancing, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yep. And now we wear shoes and travel on tar-sealed roads and
with rubber-soled
concreted
shoes and rubber tires and. Yep.
So you know, and that it brings me back to the Turtle Island short doco, and what he actually was talking about. Like, he started talking about, you know, deforestation and how the planet reacts with deforestation. I think this is what I was trying to say on the deep immersion, where I kept on going, ugh. But essentially, like, he's like, so you cut the trees down and you create a scar, and that scar then tries to heal. So the planet itself sends up crystals, is what he said, which is the minerals, right? Yep. Which is like, when you cut yourself, what happens? You get that, you know, that white weepy stuff, which is actually glucose, right? or insulin.
Yes.
So sugar. Now, what gets attracted to sugars? Yeast, bacteria, and fungi. So is your scab forming your body, forming a scab, or is this bacteria that are coming from the environment landing on that sugar, creating a scab to protect you, and then so on? So we are literally our environment, and we're missing our genetic upload, literally, because of the way we are consuming and eating and interacting, right?
Yeah. Well, even we've talked about the mycelium, and we've we've put that whole analogy out, like the movie Avatar with the blue people on Pandora, and that the trees speak, and that it grows, and what happens in one place is known by all places as that information travels. So if we look at if we look at old school proper farming, right? You grew in the ground for your family and maybe your extended family and what you traded off in the village, because maybe you grew potatoes and someone else had carrots and you traded for them. But within a local area, you grew for your local area, which, if you look at that, of the communication of the soil, mycelium communication, would give probably a pretty fucking accurate count of the people. How many people, what their health was like, et cetera, based solely on that. So now take that away, throw in massive agro farms.
Yeah.
These huge monocrop farms where they grow nothing, like in Canada, where they grow nothing but wheat for thousands of square miles. What does that tell the planet? What does that tell the planet about even the diet of the people and the needs of the people in that area?
Well, technically it tells them nothing, because if they turn it over twice every year, they're destroying the mitochondrial. So it'll have time in that patch, but to actually interconnect. See, now what we're sort of almost dwelling on or getting into is the fact that, like, if we are a combination of human cells, yeast, fungi, bacteria, and whatnot, when you're a child, like, do you actually birth? This is a trip. Do you birth a new mitochondrial mycelium? Your feet touch the ground. They always say you've got, foot fungus.
Yeah, there's good fungus and there's bad fungus.
Yeah, totally. There's the one that eats you, and there's possibly the one that you imprint onto the planet. Yep. Right? Yep. So, like, and the potential is there, because the more you start looking at the natural side of it, the more interconnected it seems. Yeah. Like the way that they used to farm, it wasn't just like they turned into agriculturalists and grew it in paddocks and mastered the art of seed. It's like the Polynesians and the Mesoamericans and the South Americans, like their sweet potato pits and stuff like that, they used to dig satellite dishes in the ground, like wok shapes, and they used to burn fires in the bottom of it and then create coal and then put soil over it and then lay the rootstock down on top of that, and that warmth would give it a kickstart at the end of winter to then grow soon. Like, it's all this, and it goes into like what Emily's talking about with like programmable sugar and things like that. Are we looking at shapes, geometric shapes, that, what I mean, and things like that are the programmable bits? And then there's other programmable bits that do other things. Like you've got the boric acid, it's a fullerene. Yeah. Like it's a fullerene, and it can pass the blood-brain barrier. It carries minerals and minerals and ascorbic acid and that sort of stuff with it. So we're starting to get these correlations where not only an interaction between molecules and compounds, but we're actually starting to find geometric shapes that are interacting on that same, their what would you call it? Their symbology, or their compound structures are actually coming to the forefront. So we're actually finding a correlation now with numbers, shapes, and the biological universe, I'll call it.
Yeah, well, and the frequencies that move between them.
Right? And what's stored, right?
Right, so then we go back to, if going back to the conversation we just had about electricity. And that electrical frequency, if you will, has changed. Now, as Dollard has talked about that in the last 10 years, there's been a change to the electrical frequency but the frequency of the electricity that is being used.
In the grid, yes.
In the grid.
That is traveling in the grid, yes.
Right, exactly. So I wanted to just clarify that. We're not necessarily talking about the energy of the planet, but the electricity within the grid has changed, and changed by a lot. Not like a 0.1,
like three phase that exists now will not run something that's older than 40 years old.
Yeah, like we're talking really radical change.
So it's different.
So the effects of that, I mean, because we talk about high frequency towers. I mean, God knows I was involved in a whole bunch of political activism work. Oh, it would have been in the 90s in Toronto about the big high power towers. What do they call them? The big massive towers. And people get brain tumors. You live too close to those things, you get fucking brain tumors. Okay, so we know they cause brain tumors. Not that they still fight it in court, but we know this. They cause leukemia. They cause all these cancers. It triggers responses within our bodies. What is the effect on the ground below them?
Exactly.
What is the effect on the mycelium and the plants and the ground below them?
Well, considering the degradation, I don't know how you would test for sort of ionization and what a healthy what would you call it?
A healthy atmosphere.
Yeah. Because that's the whole thing is like when you start plugging in all the little bits and pieces like Schauberger, water, 4 degrees.
Yeah.
So 4 degrees is healthy water, but we need to ingest it, and we are 37.5 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the water we drink is not healthy water at all, and that's a form of homeopathic vaccination, or what do you call it when toxicity, building up toxicity. So the chlorine fluoride doesn't even need to be there. Just the fact that water travels in a straight line is pulled in an open source, which means it's not going to necessarily be 4 degrees, changes all of that. And that creates disease. So there's also your cancers and, these sorts of bits and pieces that are, let's say, being activated. What creates cancer? A confused environment where a cell starts thinking that it's something that it's not.
Well, and even that, the idea of water, because we go back to programmable matter. Programmable water, right? How are we programming the water that is going through everything? The water that runs in pipes all around our house, into our house, out of our house, through lead pipes in some cases, still around, lead pipes. The processing plants it goes through, the chemicals that it's intoxicated with, right? The water is not healthy. It's not live anymore. It's not, and that's why, I'm sorry, but that's why, all of us here anyways are jealous of you and your groundwater that you're out of the ground all around you and all the rest of it. Because the vast majority of people don't have access to truly natural water. We have this highly deadened and probably very negatively programmed water, and it surrounds us everywhere. Like I say, it runs through the pipes in your walls, in your floor, it's in your atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, see, it starts sort of you sort of, when you start adding it up, it starts painting a certain picture, which hopefully gets people sort of into a frame where, like I say, it's being aware of that, but the necessity now is to bring forward this other stuff. And I don't just mean like in its tangible form. I also mean in its comprehension form. So maybe it's like it is time to like revisit the masters in the very near future, and like sort of go through a lot of the sort of stuff that, you know, that used to exist.
We have to think about it. So
totally. But that's it.
Like,
keep going.
I got into this on Sunday, and I think we got into it. We may have gotten into it in the deep immersion. I can't remember. So many conversations with so many people. I can't remember what was recorded, what wasn't recorded, what's been released, what hasn't been released. Our time that we're in now is, in my opinion, different than any other time that's ever been experienced. Therefore, when we keep falling back to the things that we were told to do before, they're not necessarily going to work for now. That goes to like what you're supposed to eat in your diet, and you and I have discussed this lots and lots and lots about the food and nutrition and et cetera, that our needs now are vastly different than what they were 30 years ago. So therefore, living by the advice that your grandmother gave you 30 years ago isn't necessarily going to keep you healthy today. But it goes beyond that, right? It goes even to the point of, like I say, some of the ancient stuff that we've been told, I think is really, really on the money, because I myself am going back and looking at a lot of old shit. So for example, with health and even with like this, with Gaia's Garden, with my skincare stuff and that, I'm looking at stuff where we have to go back and look at the old things they used to do, things like clay. Clay was such an important part of pretty much every ancient culture. Had things to do with clay, whether it was like the clay that they ate, the clay that they put on their bodies, in their hair, etc., etc. They may have done it for slightly different reasons, and maybe they did it once a month. Whereas where we're in now, we're in a place now where it's like, okay, wait, we need to return to these kind of old ways of doing some things, but we have to kick it up a notch, because what was then is we need a hell of a lot more now than what we needed back then. But the time to revisit some of this stuff is really important now. Like, I can't help but feel that there's been so much bits and pieces, and this kicked it off. This week it was so funny because I talked about clay on Sunday, and then there was a freaking article came out about mainstream. A clay in Canada has been found. Yeah. They found this clay. And you know what? It kills MRSA superbugs on contact. Like, yeah, slap that shit on, it kills the bugs. And of course, it goes on to say, like, you know, the First Nations people in that area have used this clay to heal everything for fucking thousands of years. And of course, it's not ready to, you can't just, they'll need to study this for at least another 10 or 20 years before it would ever be accepted by mainstream medicine,
before we can mine the shit out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And corrupt it and all the rest of it. But it was just very interesting to me. I love the timing when something like that comes up right after discussing what I had on Sunday about clay. And we talk about, what is clay? Oh, clay is earth. Clay is earth. Right?
Well, clay is
earth, etc.
Is negatively ionized earth. That's what it is. So you put it in like your compost, right? And microfragments, when water hits it, it creates ionization. It's like, you know how you can put a sprinkle of like just a dash of salt into like a liter of water. That is electrolyte. Yeah. It's that kind of concept. So the reason you eat it is the same reason as why C60 and its components with hydrogen work so well. It's the same with, like, what we're kind of talking about is how easy certain things are, right? You can make activated carbon at home in like a mortar and pestle out on your balcony. And make it fine enough that you can stir it into. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to have C60. There is potential for it, but you can make activated carbon that will help strip things out.
You can take a step forward, and you can be on the road too, if you will.
Well, exactly, and as you say,
if you will.
it was when companies or governments or whatever release things of, we found this clay. It's like one day soon I'll finally get on like Twitter or whatever it is and FaceTime some shit, and I'll go up to the dam that's just up the top here and I'll grab this fucking white rhodolite clay. That's in our, it's what, like, it's fucking amazing clay. We haven't done much work with it yet, but it's yeah, and
I like
yeah, probably. Like, you know, this whole area is that's what the water comes up through, and it turns into a sandstone at a different level, and then it's actually a preform of granite. So all these bits and pieces are, you know, it's like now I think I posted an article out, forwarded an article out on new studies on soil.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people are now doing like fecal transplants, and yet all they technically need to do is it's humus, right? It's a healthy humus
transplant
matter. Yeah. Having great success.
You're very funny.
But like I've also been watching, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff coming out now on stem cell research.
Yeah.
And if what Clif was postulating with what C60, it's like, well, fucking, why would you take stem cells when you can do this and just grow your own better?
Grow your own. Basically, return your cells back to what they were, which is in its natural state.
Or dare I say it, urine therapy, you know? I mean, okay, I'll just throw that one out there again.
Tell me, you can keep trying, it's not going to work.
But, you know, it's just, there's all those components. So I guess what I want to say is we've got a crew forming here on the ground that we're actually now, after, what is it, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, actually pulling some stuff together. So we're going to have websites up for an institute that we're launching. Well, an institute that we're launching in Canada to deal with a lot of our carbon and biomass research. We're also doing the Natural Design Research Institute here in Australia, which will be dealing with all sorts.
And because it can't be something we talked about yet.
Yeah. And then Levity Collective is also going to start being built, and we're looking at options in linking it through some crews that we've met down here in the blockchain world. I won't say the crypto world, but the blockchain world.
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff's getting quite exciting. You know, one of the associates is currently at a expo right now, pimping out some of the battery and capacitor cell work that we're doing. So there's stuff happening, and a lot of the wizards that we've been working with are sort of starting to get amped up. So whatever energy's going on around this area especially is sort of very much working in our favour. And I know we've been talking about it for some time, but we've actually got some really keen crew. So we actually have stuff being built as we speak. I'm not going to give any kind of launch window.
Good.
At all, but it's happening organically, but it's happening this time around. So yeah, it's all sort of coming together quite nicely. So we'll be able to start literally showing you guys the gardens and the orchards and the dams and what we've got going on, and sort of slowly start building into workshop styled
it feels like
shows.
This whole thing, it feels like, okay, so we have, as we opened the show, talking about the crazy fucking energy, like seriously, and sometimes almost mind-numbing crazy energies that's going on. But there's also a feeling of me personally, in the personal dealings of a lot of people I'm dealing with, things are moving forward suddenly. There's been a lot of stuff that has been, if not in neutral, it's been moving forward really, 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 really slowly. And it feels like now we're in a place where things are actually have been
validated.
Well, validated, and if things are coming together now, it's like the energies are instead of being feeling like there's someone holding onto the back of your shirt that you're continuously fighting on, it feels like that's been let go, and things are starting to move forward. And I mean, I've got some projects that I'm working on. I have some projects that I'm hoping to move forward into, and everything feels really, really good. And that's regardless of the politics and all this other bullshit that's playing on around us. It feels like the time is now that we really have to create, like you just said, Sony just said, ripe situations for creation. The time is now to create. It's to create new. It's to create and move forward. And I think the projects that people are working on that are truly new and moving forward are going to move forward. The projects that are maybe not moving forward, the projects that are kind of hanging on to last year, the year before, the decade before, old thinking, those are the ones that are going to stagnate. We really have to think fresh, think new. And I really feel like there's a push right now for this new stuff to come, and people are coming together. People are really, really coming together right now, and that is amazing.
Yeah.
Like groups of people are like it's like coming together, and they're doing really, really amazing work together. And it seems like more people are coming in. Even a year ago, it wasn't easy. 2 years ago, it wasn't easy. Like we tried to, you and I know, Ben, we tried to pull groups together. We tried to get stuff done, and it just wouldn't gel. Now it feels different.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's almost like if you actually went and like psychoanalyzed the situations, and like even down to at the ones that we were all going through, right? You know, house of whatever it was, 2 million people. The frame of mind was still not set in that whole. We've got to do this.
We have to do this.
Yes. It was still like, what am I going to do? And that clambering for those little bits and pieces of, I don't know, for me, like personally, what I guess it's like, it's the self-defining thing that was trying to be done. And then I don't know what it was that's sort of happened recently-ish. I think it's just like going back and recapping. I've just gone, holy fuck, and just let go of the like, oh, I've got to be this person to these people, and then I've like, oh, by being me, I'm that person anyway. And so I've relinquished, or been able to relinquish, a whole bunch of stuff. And I think that we were still very much like, it basically got to the point where it's not about me.
Yep.
I think that was the realization. It's not about me.
There's a subtle line. There's a subtle line that, and sometimes it's really, really hard to find our position on it. Our place, where we're standing, between looking after yourself, looking after your family, looking after the things that you need to do, and that place of, it's not about me. There's a balance point there. And because you're absolutely right, like the stuff in the greater aspect, it's all about us. It's about us. It's about me taking charge and doing it myself, but it's for us. Does that make sense? It's not like I'm so, and I'll give you the example. This, and it's funny because you brought it up too, and I kind of giggled when you did earlier in this conversation. I feel the need, Nick feels the need, that we need to start looking after ourselves, being self-sufficient. And that means growing our own food, knowing that our water is taken care of from whatever aspect that is, whether it means getting, I'm shopping right now for a dehydrator or two, and I'm shopping for a distilled water to make distilled water. Wow, me no speaking here. Because this is a major aspect of it, right? You go, right, I need to be able to look after my family, myself, but in doing that, I also need to look after the things that I want to do in if you will, for the all. For the movement, the work that we need to do, we have to do it ourselves.
Well, yeah,
but it's not just about self. It's about we have to do it ourselves for everyone. And I don't mean that. I'm not explaining that very well.
No, you are. It's. I call it the fringe.
Yeah.
Right, but no. Like, see, that it's that concept, and it's not the fringe as in that awesome TV show that I sometimes go and visit just to feel normal again. But it's like Elon Musk. Okay, great, make an electric car. I can't fucking do shit with that. I can't. It's still an incentive to save, to be able to, regardless of how long it's going to take for a price to drop. It's like you got to have tangible, right?
Yep.
That's what I mean. Is like I think the big reason why we haven't done massively anything with levity is because we've had to be able to show that it is able to be done.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, like
yeah. No,
so,
I get it.
And I mean, yeah, but on the scale that I've been talking about, we've been putting it together so that we can literally do a tour and go, right, so from woe to go, this is where life begins with levity, you know, and it's literally things like, so we soak this specific thing for 7 days, and this specific thing could be this around the world, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
And after 7 days, we do this, and then we do this, and this is bacteria. Welcome. Yep. You know, and then that's your compost. That's your, but everything, right? Because it is for everything. And why? Because it, and then there's the gardens, and here's the orchards, and here's the chickens, and this is an accelerated natural system because we are taking part in it. Not because we've built it, yep. Just literally because we have been observing, and this is what it sort of takes. But this is how easy it is, because you can go from the size that I'll show, which will be about 1,000 litres every 21 days, to fucking 4 litres of something. And it might seem like not much, but the fact of the matter is where this interplays with life and the way we all are, it changes everything. Like, we're not just talking about me being on a farm. Like, we're talking about we're going to be chopping up fucking 40-gallon drums and showing you how to make soil and put that in it. That could be a bathtub. That could be a few 20-litre buckets. But this is what you can get out of it.
Yeah.
And things like that. So being able to put it together in that tangible sense, and we're trying to take away the concept of time from it.
Oh, you had to use the T word, didn't you? Oh, fuck, here we go again.
But we don't need to go there, you know. That's the whole thing. Because life is hard, but it's still where we're at. That's or where we're each at, and it actually still comes down to us, and it's not actually so much the things that we do as individuals. It's how we come back together as individuals to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's community. There you go. Brought us back around.
And common
because that's the thing, right? Is the individual plays a part, but I think it was Aristotle that said that the sum is greater than the sum of all the the total is greater than all the sum, all the parts of whatever it was.
What you're saying, yeah.
So the parts are still many hands make light work and all that kind of stuff. It just the thing that makes it hard is you might not be present in a situation that makes it easy because everybody else around you is dealing with their shit, but don't take that personally. So even if it's like tuning in to watch other people do it to support that side of it is part of it, because the stuff is changing. And like I say, you know, when you've got people sending cars to sit in outer space with secret discs on them and stuff, it's like,
don't even get me started, please.
But you know, I think that if everyone starts looking at the potential, because if you're looking at a negative, that's not a potential. That's a negative. So the potential of where things can go, and I know that there's always two streams. So when you start looking at the two streams, you can choose which stream you want. It's the fork in the road.
Yep.
It's the arc.
Yep. It feels like we're at the fork in the road right now.
There you go.
Guys, it feels
Thank you, John.
Yeah, there you go. John just said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. There's the quote that Ben so eloquently bastardized. It feels like we're at this fork in the road, and it feels like it keeps coming back down to like a fucking broken record Danny here, and that responsibility that we take for ourselves, and the responsibility for how we choose to move forward for ourselves, and you know, obviously with family, friends, etc., community even. I don't know. It just seems so important right now. That aspect seems, it is so massively important, and it seems almost like the world around us is so completely and utterly fucking insane that maybe that's the push that we need. The push that we need to be like, okay, all that shit, you all fucking insane. You're all fucking crazy. So therefore, I'm just going to go back right here to myself, and I'm going to do my thing. Because I can't do whatever you guys are doing out there. I ain't having no part of it. So.
And do you know what the funny thing is it's really hard to take all that fucking la-di-da, and I'm not rubbing anything in people, like I'm really fucking not, but it's really hard when like that, like that's, and I think you guys can basically hear everything that's going on around.
Well, we can hear the birds. The birds are still going complete ape shit behind you.
It's really like, and I'm even like my body's almost wigging out as I'm sort of saying this. It's really hard to take any of it seriously while immersed in this. So I do and have lived in the city for a very long time, which is why I'm out here now. Okay, but I do all of it. So the radiation, the Trump fucking shit, all of that sort of stuff. So what we're looking at, even in this, is everything that we can possibly do to help inform and start a conversation towards how a better way to collaborate and come together in a better format.
In a better community?
So, essentially. So there are things in the woodworks. There's stuff that I can't talk about, which I know is always like, oh, fucking, why did you even say it then?
Yeah.
But the way things are going, and like Dani said, is like, keep an eye out. You know, be vigilant, but keep an eye out, because there is stuff going on, good stuff, really, really, really good stuff. And when you start correlating a lot of the other bits and pieces that has been coming through from the cliff, from the Antarctica, from the time, from the water globules, there is a very cool picture forming there. The Bosnian Pyramids, I got to throw that in there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been interesting. So there, as much as the 5G is trying to roll out, there is these other things that have been there for fucking way longer, and they come from a time that possibly stands that things were way better, and you know, so there's always the fork in the road, and I'm just seeing more and more and more validation for the oral histories, stories, and things that have been shared with myself, and you know, that sort of stuff, and being validated. So yeah.
And the interesting thing is and I don't know if it's a piece of programming that comes from religion. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, even people who are very new agey in that, there's this whole light, bubbly rainbows and unicorns who fart rainbows kind of feel of what they feel is coming. Yet all the old stories, the ancient stories that come from the various First Nations, the original peoples, before you get to that, there's a lot of shit to go through. Like there's a lot of shit. The lead up to those moments is like some pretty heavy duty fucking shits. If you look at the old oral traditions, the old oral stories, you know, the old prophecies, if you want to talk about that too. And that's it. I mean, we're kind of in that right now. And we're going through that right now. We're going through the shit. So you know, we take responsibility, and we wade our way through the shit, and we do what we have to do to make sure we're prepared and we can deal with all the shit that's thrown at us, and then come out the other side prepared and ready to move forward.
Well, yeah. See, and that's the other side of it, It's like fucking Martin Luther King. Those that love peace must learn to organize themselves as much as those that love war.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, but right now they don't. They don't.
Not just they don't. They've like, if you think about the what's the word that's been thrown around, the entrainment. So, and this is not to take away the power from discernment.
Yeah.
But we are so quick to jump. Like, I'm still waiting for the moment that we finally sort our shit out correctly and launch Levity, and boom, there's the cult. I'm so ready for it.
It'll be labeled a cult.
You know?
There'll be a cult leader, and God knows it. I'm just gonna laugh about it.
But like, that's the whole thing, right? Is discernment, but it's not judgment. It's discernment. Yep. So we're back to that. Like, we've got to ask questions. We've got to ask the right questions, and we've got to follow it through, right? You got to follow it through. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but the potential for it to mean something is there, right? It's like, if it smells like a chicken, it clucks like a chicken, it fucking lays an egg, it's not a rooster. You know, and that, I got a funny story about that. When we first started farming, one of my mates was like, "Oh, I'm going up to visit my parents. Do you mind if I take out one of the roosters so that we can, you know, have a feed up there?" I was like, "Yeah, go hard." He did it early in the morning. I had a day at work. I got home and I was like, "Yeah, he didn't do the rooster." It's like, "Where's that chicken gone?" Oh no.
I know, he told me.
He got back from his parents. He got back from his parents. Like, "Bro, you didn't kill the rooster." He's like, oh, thought it was weird when I, you know, after I plucked it and everything and I was gutting it, it had an egg in it. But, so, mistakes happen. But, like, that's the whole thing, right? It's like, you're dealing with yourself or your being, and it's like, you gotta learn what that is.
Yep. You
gotta comprehend what that is, and then you've got to learn how to integrate with it because you aren't it. And that's the trip. You know, yes, you have energy, but guess what? We're dealing with I just call it a biological world, biological realm.
Yep.
I know that there's other counterparts and but I see those other counterparts as something that's trying to infiltrate, you know, or steer it in a certain direction. And I can see which direction they're trying to steer it. But like I say, I'm still planting in the garden. We're still making soil. Fucking haven't had mutant nothings. You know, we're about to try some new things, remedies to try and keep rodents off of food, which is, you know, all these different fun things. But for me, nature's still doing its thing. So I guess that's my update. Like out here in the bush, where, you know, they were logging it and they're not now, it's going well and the water's still flowing and that sort of thing. So, you know, the start points, the origin points for our water and that sort of stuff, they're still doing really good and they're still being protected and all the rest of it. So, you know, there's every potential for us to succeed and fucking shoot to wherever.
Don't say
yeah. No, I sort of just went wherever, you know. It's your choice. Yep. But like that's what, yeah. It's that first and foremost.
So, all you unfuckers out there, do any of you guys have any questions or any points that you want to bring up or comments you want to throw in here?
Got any questions?
Thoughts or questions or... And everyone shuts up, even the chat.
And I'll apologize that it was so all over the place, but that, you know, like I said, there's a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on. Like, hopefully, I tell you what, D, we might even try and get a Carl show on for everyone. Get him to talk about what he's up to.
Is he there?
He'd be keen. He's at the expo at the moment. That's what I'm saying. He's talking.
In Australia.
Yeah, he's here in Aussie. Yeah.
Well, maybe next Wednesday, Thursday morning.
Yeah, he should next Thursday. He'd probably be about.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, we can start trying to bring some of these and get Jesse back in and have a chat about some stuff and talk about some things and maybe start 2008 with a little bit more zhuzh and where we're 18. Yeah, you know, I just trailed off in the middle there.
Yeah, it's okay. We got it.
It's Kiwi.
How do I make activated charcoal at home? Can ashes?
Right, no, don't do your fire. But basically, what would be the best? So, if in your fireplace, if you're only basically burning like hardwood, that is like, you know, from a tree, from a tree, what you do is you take the actual charcoal. The charcoal itself, and if you get it, like, essentially if you're just doing any fire anywhere, it is charcoal from an organic source. So even if it's leaves, even if you've got leaves, you can burn them, but essentially hardwoods are the best, and you just burn them and take them out as a hot ember, so it is charcoal, and you just spray it with water. Okay, be careful, don't do it inside. Don't look. I'm going to do all the. Don't look over it.
Yeah.
So essentially, like, if you had a mortar and pestle, like a marble or a porcelain mortar and pestle, and you took a piece of burning ember and you put it into that mortar and pestle and took it outside, and you got like a jug of water or a cup of water and just splashed it on it until it went cold, what the cold water does is it expands the carbon, because it freaks it out. Any of the water goes in and bursts the vessels, which is what makes it activated.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it makes the spaces between the carbon molecules, it has another space. It makes smaller spaces and therefore can hold more stuff. And then if you just grind that down in that mortar and pestle, let it dry and grind it down to a really, really fine powder, there's activated carbon. That's it. And like I say, you know, the different variances, so you can get like activated charcoal, coconut husk, you can get activated bamboo, you can get, all it is carbonized organic matter that has had water sprayed on it.
Hardwoods are the best, and obviously untreated hardwoods, i.e., you're not going to want to get a piece of hardwood that you've bought at Canadian Tire and for your fireplace that God knows what they treated it with, etc.
Yeah. So and that's basically all it is. So and then the finer the carbon. So like let's just say you had like cannabis leaf, you can make a really fine ash / carbon out of that. And just do the same thing. You can burn it quickly, like use a spray bottle. You want to be careful with some of the leaf matter that you may use, because some of the VOCs can be toxic. If you're using, cannabis with high THC, you'll be decarboxylating it. So there is a potential that if you don't burn everything out, you might get high. But that's the activated carbon is literally carbon that has had water or something to that effect sprayed on it. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I know. I've been looking at trying to do that myself, and I'm like, first I have to find a hardwood tree here. Well, olive tree would be good. Olive is great.
Yeah, I mean, for you, all you need to do is just get a branch D and break it up into sticks and start like a little fire and like a wok. And then just push it all down and then just keep burning it and breaking it up and just letting it go into ember and then spraying it with water.
Yep.
And then you just grind that up.
I even have a crappy old wok here.
Yeah, so, like that's kind of how hard I mean, we're doing more advanced activated carbons, but we're just doing them in an oven. Like, we're not doing, that's what I mean, It's like we're trying to keep it so that it's like, you can just do this. You can just do this.
Well, this is the problem. And someone brought this up, I think on Sunday. In the fact of, so for example, we've talked about C60. And
I need someone that wants to make videos and do editing like you do.
Me?
We all do, don't we? Yeah, we all need someone that'll...
Dude. I just offered to help someone else out a little while ago, and it was like, if you really, really, really need some help, I can help you, but you really should try and find someone else first, because I'm already doing 36-hour days.
I just need a body cam.
There you go. Like with a miner's headlamp, like with a GoPro on the front. No, I mean, someone brought it up and said, the fact of the matter is like we talk about how nutrition is really, really important right now. We talk about how we have to be able to treat ourselves, treat our bodies to be at our physical optimum best type thing, homeostasis, etc. And the problem is things like C60, fucking expensive, right? If someone brought up the Kangen water, fucking expensive. Someone else brought up the what was it? One of the other vitamin supplements. But they're fucking expensive if you're going to buy it, right? And the idea is we have to find ways of being able to do these things ourselves.
Yep.
Simplify
Which is why I always say a pinch of salt in every second liter of water you drink is a fucking awesome start.
Yep. And Dawn always talks about a pinch of baking soda. She puts
Well,
baking soda
yeah.
in everything she drinks or eats or whatever. Just a tiny pinch.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
a tiny bit.
Yep. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
No, I'm just saying it's unfortunately now, and I've had multiple conversations now with several people about the C60, and this one friend that Ben and I have, who is heavily involved in the research. It's not just a marketing thing. C60 to make at the moment is a long, drawn-out process that is not easy. It's not fast. It's not something you can just go, here you go, here's your bauble. It takes 350 hours? 350 hours to be emulsified, whatever. It takes time to actually make those, the fullerene, the buckyballs, have to be done a certain way, and it has to be done. It's, I get the fact. I mean, sometimes we deal with the fact of like certain supplements, etc. You go, really? Why is it this price? Because
so just
right
on
now,
that,
because C60 is such a small, tiny, little compartmentalized thing, it takes a long time to make it. So the price is high. The price is expensive. The actual ingredients, I'm doing all the pricing out right now. The actual ingredients to buy, you're talking about $150 a gram just to buy the fullerenes.
and that's for probably like 99.5% pure or something
That's
along
for
those
like,
sort of lines.
yeah, like
Or 99,
yeah, like that's 99% pure in 1 liter of oil. So that $150 worth of fullerenes is enough to make 1 liter of oil. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not, and then you've got to talk, for example, the best comes out of China. So, and quite literally the best quality comes out of China. Then you got to pay for the courier as well. So if you're saying you buy a gram to make it yourself, which like I said, I have been looking into, and then you got to have it couriered over, and your import duties, and then 350 hours in a magnetic stirring machine to emulsify it into the oil.
And there's still a process in there too.
And there's still a process in there too. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, like we're not talking about something that is cheap either in cost or in labor. Now,
I just want, but see, on top of that, the other thing that I and it may have been facetiously, I doubt it, but I also had someone come and say, but remember, at some point they used to stir this by hand.
Yeah, stir this by hand. Holy shit. 350 hours of stirring this by hand.
But then, like, look at what they do for biodynamics.
Oh.
And I'm just saying, I'm not. I'm just
I get
like.
Listen, my brain has been all over this, and I've been looking.
See, it's like it's the same with like what you're talking about. Like, there is ways that like you can ozonate water, that you can do bits and pieces like this at home.
Yep.
Really, simply, like even chilling water itself. But yeah, it's we're getting to that potential now where all of these things are actually coming out.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of stuff coming out, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of us who are working on stuff, trying to work with the best ideas and how we move forward in testing and testing and testing and testing and testing. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to work on. We have a lot of
putting it all together.
Yeah, and then taking all the pieces and putting all the pieces together, because they all interact, and that's the other big thing that we're getting. There's so much disclosure that's coming out about just how many of these pieces fit together if you can just see the edges and see how they knit and how the one thing affects the other thing.
So yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
So listen, why don't you talk to Carl, see if you can arrange. I don't know if you can grab his ass out there at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah, no, like I'll probably go pick him up next week on Wednesday or Thursday or something like that.
Okay.
And then like probably Wednesdays because we got to go burn some shit and make some shit and squash some shit and probably electrocute some shit. So
you and your shit.
there's shit to be done. It's fun though. It's fun.
With me and we'll set up a time to do to have the conversation with Carl that we'll record, and we may have to pre-record it and maybe have to go out in morning in Europe, which will be evening for you.
Yep.
We may have to do it that way, guys. But we'll definitely get it done. This friend of Ben's, Carl, is an interesting dude. I got to meet him when I was in Australia.
Yeah, let's just try and keep to some topics.
Yeah.
Because he's like me, but he is an actual scientist.
Yeah.
Like he's got nearly 20 years academia under his belt, but he's not a. Yeah.
We'll put together, try and put some talking points together for him.
And then and like it'd be probably good to do that and get Jess as well. It would be
definitely. We got some interesting people to have some conversations with.
Yeah. There's more coming out of the woodwork.
Oh yeah. I think on Sunday night, this coming Sunday, Anne Callahan and I will be doing Quintessentially Whole. We've got a pile of different things that we've been talking about, and we'll have to sort through, figure out what the actual topic. It'll be another one probably like this, where it'll be like, oh, okay. And
I'm hoping. By then, like we printed up business cards last week, so there's business cards being handed out with some shit on it.
Wow.
So yeah, we'll have more to talk about because Carl will have communicated down there, and we'll have things on the thing where people will be able to go and have a look at some stuff.
Good.
Like actually start looking at some stuff.
Very, very.
So yeah. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. That's cool. Well, right, I got to go rescue some endangered plants.
Yeah, you go do some farming.
Yeah, basically.
Farm boy. And I will be back on Sunday with Anne Callahan. If she doesn't get totally snowed under with this devastating snowstorm. Code red in Ireland. We got this much snow. At least where she is anyway. We'll see what tomorrow brings. And so that's it for us for tonight. We'll see you guys all on Sunday. Bye.
Lots of love.